Alright, you made it back for part 2. If you didn't watch part 1, you should probably go do that. Link will be somewhere around here. And today we will be benchmarking a 4080 on the Samsung Odyssey Arcs. First, we're going to be starting off with just one of the Arcs, see how it does, and towards the end of the video, we'll span it up to 3 again, just because it's going to look really cool. We'll see if it actually can hold up or not. Alright, so if you haven't guessed, based on the screen and the one behind me, we'll be playing Ark on an Arc. We don't have an Intel Arc though, so we can't triple Arc it. Alright, so I've got my graphics pulled up here. Everything is all completely maxed out. We did keep motion blur off just because usually it's not that great. Alrighty, so here we are. And Ark is a relatively older game now. I think it launched fully like 2018. I know it was definitely alpha in 2016 or 17. But it's definitely not known to be the most well optimized game. I will say though, it is still graphically impressive. Looks like we are averaging about, I'd say right around 80 or so FPS. This little overraptor right here. Completely playable, is definitely immersive. Can't say I really want to come across something like a T-Rex because it'd just be terrifying having it this big. But man, definitely incredible texture. We do have it set to 4K. Ark does not have DLSS, so this is how the game is purely running by itself. But again, even at 4K, it's just something about the tree textures up there just don't look that great. So, but the rest of the game though, it looks incredible. The sun shafts too, that's crazy. So one of the coolest things I think Ark did was actually implement these tech versions of the dinosaurs just because they're so cool. And being an IT person, it's just even cooler seeing robot dinosaurs, and then seeing them in 4K on a 55-inch TV is even better. Alright, so moving on from Ark, we're going to be doing Cyberpunk. So again, we weren't able to do Cyberpunk in part 1 just because the 30 series did not want to play well at all with the 3 Arcs. We did not test it with just one, but we're sure the 30 series probably could have played it fine on just one of the Arcs. So this time around, we will be doing we're just going to be running the benchmark for Cyberpunk. We will do it for one of the Arcs, and then also when we have 3 of them attached, just to see how it does. But again, we weren't able to actually have a sort of benchmark to compare it to with the 30 series, at least for the single monitor. Alright, so the benchmark's loading up. We do have all the graphics settings fully turned up. Psycho Ray Tracing is on. We do have DLSS on. So let's see what we got. And definitely really smooth right out the gate. Looks like we're averaging currently about 83 FPS or so. In the 80s, very, very playable. Definitely some insane ray tracing going on, but this 4080 is just handling it no problem. I'm really curious to see how this is going to do when we have all 3 connected again. But as far as just one goes, completely maxed out settings, it's doing phenomenal. Alrighty, so we averaged 96 FPS, not bad. The lowest one was 58. Again, we were rendering at 4K, VSync off, DLSS on, and yeah, so I did really well. Alright, so next we've got Hogwarts Legacy. So this game came out recently, it's a lot of fun. I have about 8 hours or so into it, definitely not an expert on it by any means, but figured it'd be a good one to benchmark and see kind of where the 40 series is standing on it, especially on an Arc. So getting into this, these are our graphics settings. Again, everything is maxed out. Frame rate we have it bumped up, but we definitely are not going to get anywhere near that. I do have DLSS off just because I want to see how it renders this game at 4K natively to see how it's doing. And then again, we do have everything maxed out and including the ray tracing. So let's see how it does. So it definitely looks good. Frame-wise, we're on the lower side. We're pretty much in console territory, around 30 FPS. Haven't seen it dip below there, but we also aren't really near... Oh, these guys are flying kites. We really aren't near anything crazy right now. So let's take a flight on over to the castle and see if that changes. Yeah, so we're at 27 FPS, 28 FPS right now. So it's definitely dipping a bit and getting below I'd say I can also tell you now, it's just a bit choppy, and I would not really recommend playing this game without DLSS on at 4K. So we're gonna go ahead and turn on DLSS. Looks like when it's on auto, it defaulted to 1080. Let's go ahead and change that to quality, just so it's a little bit nicer. So we're pretty much right at 1440 and how it's gonna render right now. So let's see how much better that does. Alright, so immediately we're already up in like the 40s for the FPS, and it's much smoother and I'd say very playable. So let's kind of keep running around and see what happens. We'll hop back on our broom here and see how it drops. Very playable. Again, it's not hitting 60, it looks like. Maybe when you're kind of in a closed area or away from a lot of stuff going on, you will be. Hey, what's this? Alrighty, we got a House Emblem scarf, nice. But yeah, also this game is water, it looks really nice. So very playable with DLSS on, just don't play without, I would say. Alright, so the next thing we got going on is Spider-Man, definitely one of my favorite games and superheroes of all time. So immediately starting off, doing in a good spot. Before even moving or things like that, we're hovering right around 90 FPS, it looks like. 87, 86, 85 to 90 FPS, that's what I'd call it. So let's get some movement, kind of see how she holds up. We are maxed out, we do have DLSS on, and let's kind of see what we got going on. Okay, so it looks like we're staying pretty consistent with at least 50 FPS. It's the lowest I've been seeing it drop, but we're for the most part averaging, I'd say 58 or higher, which is pretty impressive. I will say this game is very well optimized. I'm curious to see on the 40 series when we hook up the 3 monitors, if that black bar issue still persists or if it's still just a matter of some weird resolution bug that this game has. Because if you remember from our first video, you will have seen, and I talked about it, how because it was just so wide, the game didn't seem like it supported that resolution, or the 3090 I believe we had was just struggling to output that resolution. But I don't think it was the 30 series cards problem. I think it was just the game itself, because every other game we played, it didn't have an issue when we were in horizontal landscape mode with these monitors. And even this game itself, it played great when it was all vertical. So I'm curious to see if we do have that issue again. Part of me feels like we will, and again, not as it's an issue from the 4080, but it's going to be just an issue with the game just not supporting that high of a resolution, because it's massive when you have 3 of these in landscape mode. But I'd say this is completely playable, beyond playable, honestly. Like, it's, for the most part, it feels like you're always 60 FPS or higher. It looks great, and this is not having an issue at all. Again, our graphics are completely maxed out, ray tracing is on, and yeah, you could sit here and you could swing for hours and just have the time of your life. Okay, so our next thing we have is the new Resident Evil 4 Remake demo. So this game I am very excited for, a longtime Resident Evil fan. I've been exposed to Resident Evil since probably I was in diapers. So I'm very excited for this game to come out, and I'm even more thrilled that Capcom blessed us with another demo that we got to play and get our hands on. Okay, so looking at our graphics real quick, we do have it set to 4K. Resolutions are on 4K also. VSync is off, ray tracing high. Basically, we maxed out everything we could without it complaining too much about the graphics memory having an issue. I think the only thing that we have off is the hair strands, because we think it's just something with the game needs a bit more optimizing, and the issue that we're referring to is sometimes, well, not really sometimes, but all the times, if you change this to being high to really make it, you know, the most graphically intense as you can, there's these constant black lines on Leon's head, And we think it's just an animation problem, really, because of how it's trying to animate each frame up here individually. We have not tried it on normal, so we'll actually go ahead and do that for this run, and we'll see kind of how it goes. But normally we just had it off, and I mean, he still looks great, but there was an issue with it being on high, so we'll see how it does on normal. So we're actually in the game, and it's just so much darker and grittier compared to how it started before. And looking at it, once we kind of... And looking at it, once we kind of get into the light here, I believe Leon's hair is having the same black line animation issue. Yeah, so now we're here in the light, you can kind of see it. If you leave his hair, like, it almost looks like you can definitely see the solid black lines that are horizontal, but then if you really look, it almost looks like it's like a grid, like there's the little squares almost, and it's only in his hair. But if we have it set to off and we don't animate, there's no issues at all. So we think it's a matter of optimization, not necessarily that the card can't handle it, because I mean, it's doing great when it comes to frames. You know, like we're averaging around 90, like 85 to 90 frames a second. And it seems like even if it's on normal or high for the hair, it's the same effect. But if you have it on off, you don't get those black lines. So I think it's just an optimization thing, which Capcom can probably include in their day one patch when they fix the rain. So for those of you that did watch the reel, you will know that Leon is trying to just sell this guy on the extended car warranty. So I think visually one of the most impressive things about this demo is just coming down into this basement. Like, you know, we're still getting amazing frames, you know, but it's just seeing the lighting effects, you know, like to the right of, if you're not looking at it, wherever your flashlight is pointing, like you can't see anything. And it's going to add to the factor of just one, you know, survival horror, but two, just the immersion, you know. It's a big rat. Huge. And there he goes. This game just looks incredible, and I cannot wait for the whole one to release. Something that's really insane is, one, just like the texture in his jacket, you know, it actually looks like it's leather. But two, it's just how, like, accurate the lighting is. So you can even, like, point your gun, right, get close to the light, aim it down, and, like, you'll see it catches the glow on the top of the gun perfectly. You know, still keeping the side darker, like it should be shadowy, and just really watching the light reflect off the metal of the gun, just so lifelike. You know, like, it's just incredible to see how far gaming has come, and especially having played this game, you know, back when it came out in 2005, it's surreal to see it, and it's almost a mix of nostalgia, but also not, because it's just so different. It feels like you're playing a different game with like the same roots. So it's really weird. But again, it's just so graphically impressive to see, especially with lighting and how that's how far it's come. Alright, so here we are on day 2. Essentially, long story short, is these did not want to just turn on and play nicely again on Friday. So they say I was here pretty late getting them all set up, and here we are. The other issue I was running into was the computer was detecting all 3 of the screens, but for some reason 2 of them were set to 120 Hz, which is fine, and then the third one was hard capped at 165 Hz. And by the hard cap, I mean I couldn't change it at all. Like, it was just refusing to change from 165 Hz, whether it was through Windows settings, NVIDIA control panel. It could not change, and I could not figure out why. So at this point, when I started to change the game mode and turn them all off, needless to say, while changing the game mode to being off, I think this would have fixed it on its own, but I can't say for certain because there was an issue with surround at the time. Somehow it got turned back on, so it was detecting one of the monitors, and it was having a whole huge issue. But what ultimately brought it all back up was I accidentally stepped on the power switch, and I turned everything off at the same time. And it all booted back up fine, so yay. Alright, so we're back in Ark. I had to reset the resolution to get the game to even launch again. So it's good to put this back to custom because it reset everything. I don't think we're going to be able to get it to go higher than this resolution. So let's just see what it looks like rendering in just regular 4K and see how it spans. Wow, okay. First, motion blur, gotta go. And field of view. Alright, so we are getting a solid 18 frames a second. So here's our tech parasaur from earlier. I will say, as far as immersion goes, being able to see everything, that is still really cool. But our frames are 25 right now. And just to look, I physically have to turn my entire head to the left to see. I forget that this game is potato mode, literally becomes potato mode. Alright, so medium, we're about 50 frames a second, so still smoother for sure, but yeah, the game does not look that great. Alright, so I got Cyberpunk booting up now behind me. I did play this one a little bit on Friday before I left just to see, and with Psycho RTX on, it is unplayable completely. However, still on high settings, or epic, whatever this game calls them, you can play it completely fine around 50 or so FPS with RTX off. So yeah, it's very playable with RTX off, and again, the graphics settings are completely maxed out. And this game, however, it does actually let us set the resolution to the proper 11520 by 2160, which is pretty awesome. I'm shocked that they support that. But yes, I'd say it's very playable. I want to say it's at like 40 or so FPS. For some reason, MSI, it's not loading, but from Friday when I had it on, it runs about 45 FPS or so to 50. So just above console. Not super groundbreaking, but again, it's completely playable if you really want to have this much screen space while you're playing. Alright, so in Hogwarts Legacy, I bumped all the graphics down to low to start off with, RTX off, and we are at 57, 55-ish frames a second, just under 60. And I'm definitely skeptical on how this game is going to run once we bump them up. Still doesn't look horrible on low settings. I'd say it's playable if you really wanted to. Again, just having the extra field of view could be really cool for some people. Personally, I'd take the graphics. I can try bumping them up a bit here and see what we can do. Hanging out right around 40 to 45 FPS in this main courtyard. So definitely does look a bit better, but take a little flight here real quick, see how it does. And it's still hanging out right above 40 FPS. So yeah, I'd say this is playable, for sure. Can actually see around the towers. It's crazy, you can see all the Hogsmeade over there. At the Quidditch field to our left. There's so much viewing angle. So we're back in Spider-Man. We're currently getting off the bat about 75 FPS. So that is great. So let's see how it actually does under some motion. And the last time we played this, when it's spanning this way, on the sides of the screens we'd see those black bars. So I wonder if we can get that to happen again, or that was just a 30 series problem. But we are constantly staying above 60 FPS right now, which is amazing. We're not seeing the bar as yet, but still placing hanging out right about 60 FPS or higher, which is great, besides that one dip that we had. Alright, so I got the new Resident Evil 4 demo booted up. We've got our resolution set to 11520 by 2160, so it's awesome that it actually recognizes that. Fresh 120. In the menu, we are at 30 FPS, but I don't know if that is because it's just menu locked or what, so we shall see. Ray tracing is on high, so let's load this up and see how it actually does. Alright, so immediately, not that great. We've got 25 frames a second, but it is a stable 25 frames a second. Oh, no, I'm just kidding, 24. So let's see if we can just turn off ray tracing, kind of like how we had to do with Cyberpunk. Smacking the game and having ray tracing off made no difference at all. We're still at 25 frames a second. So let's see what else we can change to make this playable. Alright, so using the preset to prioritize performance, we're getting mid-30s to 40-ish. So if you really want to play it at this frame count, you can. I don't recommend it, but maybe with a 4090 you could possibly get just a little bit more performance for what you're trying to do, and maybe a better processor than what we have in here could help, but I don't know how much better performance you're gonna get, let alone graphic quality at the same time. It's a little bit better when we're inside, but this is not ideal, I would say, at all.
Whoa. This is intense. Oh, there's no haptic feedback?
I don't know if you use on the Switch if you'll actually have it, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's not really there.
Yeah, it's a pretty cheap wheel.
Yeah. 50 frames a second.
It's the view is amazing, because even though it's like slightly stretched, if you're not looking left and right, it feels like you're driving fast because it's moving faster over here. There you go. Oh, you turn by hitting cars. Okay, that's easier.
Just like real life.
Yeah, you bounce off the cars when you're turning. The steering wheel's pretty bad. I mean the pedals every time you move, like to go to brake.
Yeah. But they have like no grip on the bottom.
Yeah. We need to like Velcro.
Alright, so that's going to conclude our video on the ARCs. Again, this was more so geared to benchmark the 4080 and see what kind of frames you'd be looking at if you were to game on just one of them or three of them, as compared to just the ARCs themselves as a product review. So we definitely had a professional driver behind the wheel of the Mario Kart Pro Deluxe thing. I forgot the exact name of it, but all I know is it was supposed to be played on Nintendo Switch with Mario Kart, but instead we use it for Dirt 5 because we don't take ourselves too seriously around here. I will say though, for a $100 wheel, it's not bad. The pedals could definitely use a lot of work, and I don't know if you use it on a Switch if there's actually force feedback or not, but it does at least always go back to center for you, so it was definitely playable. So we hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you on the next one.